Before a single law reaches the House of Commons, there is a step almost no voter in Britain has ever heard of. The mechanism has a name most people have never heard either: King's Consent. It requires government ministers to notify the monarch privately whenever a proposed law might touch the Crown's own property, revenue, or prerogative, and to secure the sovereign's consent before Parliament is even allowed to debate the bill. The earliest documented use dates back to February 1728, when King George signified his consent so that Parliament could proceed with a bill to suppress piracy. Almost 3 centuries later, the same convention is still in daily use inside Whitehall, quietly and almost entirely out of public view. The royal family's own website does not deny any of this. It describes the practice in a single short paragraph, framing it as a routine courtesy rather than a point of leverage. The process itself is simple on paper. Whenever a government department is drafting a bill that touches royal interests, it must write to the palace, giving as much notice as possible, but never less than 14 days before the bill is introduced to Parliament. The Crown reviews the draft. In modern constitutional practice, consent is always granted or withheld strictly on the advice of the government of the day, meaning the monarch is not supposed to act on personal preference. This is different from royal assent, the largely ceremonial signature that comes after a bill has already passed both houses. King's consent happens far earlier, before elected representatives have even started debating the text. The two procedures are easy to confuse, and that confusion has worked in the Crown's favor for most of the convention's history, since the earlier, quieter stage draws almost none of the scrutiny the later, ceremonial one does. For most of its history, the mechanism operated with almost no public scrutiny at all. That changed in 2021, when a Guardian investigation combed through government files and found that the Queen, together with the then Prince Charles, had been asked to consent to more than 1,000 pieces of legislation before they ever reached Parliament. The subject matter ranged from serious constitutional questions down to remarkably ordinary areas of policy, including rules on road safety and even legislation touching hovercraft regulation. A detail that struck many commentators as proof of just how wide the convention's reach actually is. The files went further than simple sign-offs. In 1973, newly uncovered government memos showed the Queen's own solicitors lobbying the Department of Trade and Industry over a draft law that would have required companies, including her own private shareholdings, to disclose their ownership. The wording of the bill was subsequently revised, and the exemption she sought made it into the final version. The correspondence survived only because it happened to route through a private solicitor rather than palace officials, which meant it fell outside the usual layer of confidentiality that keeps most of these exchanges permanently sealed. Most uses of King's consent leave little trace beyond a single line in Parliament's records. A handful of cases are harder to miss. In 1988, a bill that would have stripped the Crown of certain legal immunities inside the Palace of Westminster itself could not even be debated because consent for it was withheld. In 1999, a private member's bill that would have handed Parliament, rather than the government acting in the monarch's name, the power to authorize military strikes against Iraq met the same fate. The Queen, acting on ministerial advice, declined to signify her consent, and the debate never happened. Both cases share the same structural feature. The bill wasn't defeated by a vote, amended in committee, or talked out by opponents. It simply never reached the floor, because permission to discuss it was never given. Westminster is not the only parliament that answers to this convention. Holyrood operates a near-identical rule known there as Crown Consent, and in 2021, The Guardian revealed that at least 67 pieces of Scottish legislation had been vetted by the late Queen under it. A leaked government memo went further, stating it was almost certain that some of those bills had been altered specifically to secure her approval. The following year, in October 2022, King Charles was asked to vet emergency legislation freezing rents across Scotland because the bill could affect tenants on his own Balmoral estate. It became the first piece of Scottish legislation he reviewed as monarch, and the first bill from Holyrood he later signed into law. Under pressure after the Guardian's reporting, Holyrood's presiding officer changed the rules so that ministers now have to tell MSPs as soon as a bill is tabled whether the monarch was allowed to see it first. Though there is still no requirement to say whether the bill was changed at his request. Supporters of the convention frame it as a narrow, technical safeguard rather than a political tool. Erskine May, the parliamentary rulebook that has governed Westminster procedure since the 19th century, describes the practical purpose plainly. It lets the Crown flag concerns about its own legal interests early, quietly, rather than being forced to withhold royal assent after a bill has already passed, an outcome no monarch has resorted to since 1708. In this reading, King's consent is closer to a legal checkbox than a lever of influence, and the monarch never substitutes personal judgment for the government's advice. Critics see the same mechanism differently. Following the Guardian's reporting, more than 50,000 people signed a petition calling on a House of Commons committee to open a formal inquiry into how the convention is used. Their objection is not that the Crown occasionally blocks a bill outright, since that is rare. It is that the palace gets an early, private look at legislation everyone else in the country only sees once it is already public, with the option to request changes before a single elected representative has weighed in. Campaigners argue that even if the monarch always defers to government advice, the public has no way of knowing how often that advice was itself shaped by what the palace wanted, since the correspondence behind it is almost never released. The pressure has not gone away. In the summer of 2026, a Green Party MP began preparing a bill of her own, aimed not at King's consent directly, but at the related exemption that shields royal communications from freedom of information requests altogether. Her proposal would extend disclosure rules to the Royal Archive and the Duchies of Cornwall and Lancaster, all currently walled off from public request. The government has given no indication it intends to support it, and under the existing rules, it would need the King's own consent simply to be debated. That detail rarely makes it into the coverage, but it is the clearest illustration of how the convention actually functions. A bill designed to open royal communications to public scrutiny still has to clear a private royal review before Parliament can even discuss it, the same gate every other bill on this list has passed through since 1728. Whether that gate stays open, narrows, or closes further is not something the public will get to watch happen in real time. It is something they will read about afterward, in whatever version of events the palace and the government agree to release.